Hey, this is Adrian with LarsenPress.com bringing you another 60 seconds. Today's video we're going to discuss a question Mary Askew brought up with how did I get into competitive benching, along with who did I look up to when I first started. I'm pretty passionate about some of the things I'm going to say, so this might go a little bit longer than 60 seconds, and for that I'm sorry, but some of the people that mean the world to me, that got me into lifting, there's no way I could ever leave them out of a video like this. So bear with me as I get through this. I started competitive lifting in 1995 or 4, I believe. Shortly after I started competing, I started training at a place called Nelson's in Oregon City, which now it's called Nautilus Plus. To this day, I still train there. The reason I started competitive benching is I got booted off the basketball team in high school, and I needed something to stay competitive. I needed something that pushed me, something that was challenging. I ran into a guy named Joaquin Diaz de Leon, who's somebody I'm forever in debt for getting me into powerlifting. Joaquin told me that I had great potential and that I just needed to stick it through, train a certain way. He coached me all through my teenage years and into my early 20s, and gave me some of the best advice, and was one of my best friends for many, many years. Without him, I would never have come close to the lifter that I am today, let alone break the all-time record like I did a handful of years ago. Definitely owe him everything for that. When I started training at Nautilus, it's Nautilus now, back in the day it was Nelson's, I was training with guys like Steve Bodwin, Jim Cunningham, Brian Jackson, Joaquin Diaz de Leon, Todd Beecraft, and Tiny. I currently still train with Tiny. It's funny, he was a 600-pound raw bencher, crazy overhead pressing strength. Biggest guy I've ever met in my entire life. Super intimidated by him. He trained me for many years, kind of when I was coming up in as a young teenage lifter, and now 20 years later I'm training him. It's kind of a funny story. One of my best friends, great guy. Steve Bodwin was a guy, 500-pound raw bencher. He was ripped, jacked. He could have easily done a bodybuilding show at any time while being a super competitive power lifter. He had a work ethic far beyond anybody's I've ever seen before. Jim Cunningham was a guy from New York. He was about 6'4", probably 290 pounds-ish, and one of the strongest human beings I've ever met. And not just benching, but overall. I mean, he would lap pull down more than anybody that I'd ever seen. He would pick up 160-pound dumbbells like you or I would pick up a 10-pound dumbbell. Funny story about Jim is one time he came into the gym. He did construction for a living, and his hand was all duct taped up. And he said he had an accident at work, but it was bench day. He wasn't going to miss benching over some cut on his hand. It was a pretty significant cut. Put some duct tape on it. He got through the workout. Probably worked out for nearly 4 hours that day. Todd Beecraft had traps that were far bigger than any muscle I've ever seen on any human being possible. He was doing professional wrestling off and on, fantastic shape. He was another 500-pound raw bencher. Just crazy, crazy strength. Brian Jackson, humongous guy, just naturally strong. I was fortunate because all of these guys allowed me to train with them, gave me a ton of free advice, were fantastic role models, and pushed me to be the athlete that I am today. They made me think of every time I went into the gym, I needed to outlift and outperform everybody there, and I've had that mentality ever since. I oftentimes will go into the gym and I'll think about these guys, and I miss them. I miss training with them. There's things about each one I try to carry on now while I'm in the gym or just in my everyday life. That's how much they've impacted me. Specifically Jim Cunningham. That guy was a beast. He would come into the gym sore and beat up, and there's oftentimes I'll come in with like a stubbed toe or a hangnail, and I don't want to train. I think about Jimbo. I'll never bitch out on a workout because I'm sore. Not after what I've seen Jim do. Last thing I want to touch on is the camaraderie that we had as a group. We would have done anything for each other. It was a brotherhood that I have never experienced since then. Since I'm sure it's past the statute of limitations, I wasn't quite 21 back then, but before training, we would all meet at Steve's house. We'd have breakfast. His wife would get up early, and she'd make dozens and dozens of pancakes for everybody. After training, we would go across the street to Jimmy O's Pizza, and we would drink beer. Now, Jim would drink pitchers of beer by himself and not even look affected. We all really cared about each other and made it so that we wanted each of us to be as absolutely good at lifting as possible. We all needed to be successful. Steve kind of was the ringleader of it all. He did a fantastic job. Well, that's kind of my story. That's how I got into competitive benching, or why I did competitive benching. It's all because of Joaquin Diaz de Leon, and I owe him everything for that. And those are the group of guys that were role models to me growing up, and to this day stick an impression with me that makes me want to work hard and outlift other people. That's 60 seconds wrapped up in about 6 minutes. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Make sure you like, share, subscribe, whatever you got to do. If you have comments or you want to see some question answered on 60 seconds, just post it down there in the comment section. I'll make sure I get to it. Thanks.